first several nights of Chanukah, I spoke about the history, the customs, the rather complex history of why we light candles for 8 days. What I did this morning, a bit last night, was focus on what the Zohar and what the Hasidim do with Chanukah. They put all their focus on the menorah. So they take us back to Torah portion Beha'alotecha, where we're given the commandment to light the menorah, the 7-branch lampstand inside the Holy Temple, and especially meditations on light, the connection between the oil and the light, the wick, and there are many biblical verses that take us there. I just wanted to add 2 here, both from one psalm, the longest chapter in the Bible, the longest psalm in the Bible, which is Psalm 119. So we have here in verse 130. Verse 130, it says the following: Petach devarecha Yair, mevin petayim. Petach devarecha Yair, mevin petayim. So Petach devarecha, the opening of words, brings forth light. And so the question is, what kind of words do we say that emit light? So this is addressed to the divine. Petach devarecha Yair, the opening of your words bring light. And so the question is, in the way that human beings somehow channel the divine. And I spoke earlier today about this moment when we can feel the soul energy within, and then we bring that soul energy out through words. And one of the main ways in the Jewish tradition that we channel energy into the universe is through our words, which is why there is such a strong Jewish ethos against Lashon Hara, which is not just gossip, by the way. It says in Proverbs and other places that any words that cause emotional harm, to put in the language of the Kabbalah, is a sin. It's a form of idol worship. Now, why would it be that words that cause emotional harm? Now, we're not saying to an overly sensitive person. We're saying there's some objective standard for what we mean by harsh words. And we're talking on the other side, because they're saying that all the energy that goes into harming is action from the Sitra Achra, because the Sitra Achra, the other side in the Kabbalah, is devoted to harm, is devoted to harming people and to harming goodness. And therefore, you might say there's a huge class of neutral words, and then there are words of harm. You see this in, for example, Leviticus 17, when we're told, do not hate each other. There's laws against holding grudges, etc. So all of these commandments are, from a Kabbalistic perspective, in the service of the Sitra Achra and the Yetzer Hara. Then there's the whole realm of neutral words. And then there's the realm of what we might call holy words. And we just have to study the book of Proverbs to see how these words are listed. But I'll just give you one indication of what we will call the idea of Petach devarecha Yair, the opening of your words brings light. And these are words that are healing words. And the idea of healing words is that when you know that someone is in a troubled place, someone's trying to work things through, someone is suffering. We talk about this during the Misha Berach. What it means for us to, number one, have empathy, and to show empathy through healing words. So because of my long years in counseling, I just want to say 2 comments about what it means to use healing words. First of all, even though we might feel empathy, it doesn't mean that we know what other people are going through. And what many people do when we're trying to, again, bring light through words is assume what other people are going through. In fact, we oftentimes tell people what they're going through. We tell people what they're feeling. We try to solve people. We try to guide people without listening very carefully. So one part of what I'm going to call healing words always begins with an ego self state of mind of receptivity and absorbing what you might say the inner state of another person, and empathetically letting it register within us. And for a moment, don't have something to say. Don't say the first words that come to your mind. So part of what it means to have healing words is to not say anything. One of the strongest counsel that I give people is don't say the first thing that comes to your mind. Sometimes the first thing that comes to our mind is just a space filler. Sometimes we want to get out of an uncomfortable situation. Some of the words I hear, for example, after a funeral service, the worst I've ever heard, I share this often, was that on the way from the chapel to the burial site, I heard a person walk up to the son of the funeral of his deceased father, the bereaved son, and some well-meaning relative said, well, it's time to move on. And I remember thinking that this the most ill time for that expression, but it was the words of someone who felt uncomfortable. And I think this man did not know what to say to this young bereaved man, and therefore said the first thing that came to his mind, some banal, it's time to move on again before we had even got to the burial site. So the one thing I've noticed is that people sometimes want to say the right thing, but they say the first thing that comes to their mind. Sometimes when someone is suffering and someone says, well, are you okay? And oftentimes what that means is, I hope you're okay because I don't want to hear about your suffering. So one thing that I think about is reversing the situation. I mean, if I were really suffering, I would rather someone say, hey, how are you handling it? Or anything I can do? Or is there anything I can say that can help? Or, some acknowledgement that I'm going through something, as opposed to someone saying, hey, I hope everything is okay, which is a way of saying, let's not talk about it. So in words of healing, first advice is don't say the first thing that comes to your mind. Empathetically register what's happening inside of the other person and contemplate a bit. Use the exercise of reciprocity, meaning what would I be feeling if I were in their place? And what words would help me? It's just an imaginary role reversal. What must they be feeling? As we think with as much empathy as possible. What words would I like to hear? Now, oftentimes when we do this exercise, we actually do not know what to say. We have an urge within us to bring light to another person, to bring healing to another person. And oftentimes there is nothing we can say. And sometimes all we have is silence. And then we have to figure out a way to register that we care, that we're present, but not in some way that tries to solve anything, not in some way that tries to fix anything, but just to register presence. So in this phrase, Petach devarecha yair, the opening of your words brings light, I'm bringing a line from Proverbs that I'm not going to quote now, and that is the power of words to heal. And so on this seventh night of Chanukah, as we end Shabbos and go into the week, I just wanted to offer to all of you another aspect of light, and that is the light of words that can aid in the healing of a troubled heart.